Just Jen, living my 360-degree life. And I'd like to welcome you to my show. I'm so glad that you're here and that you chose to spend time with me today. We have a fabulous guest today. I'm going to bring her in right now. Her name is Donna Cowan. Here's Donna right here. Hey, Donna.
Hey.
Yes. Thank you for joining my 360-degree life. But before we get started, I'd like to do just a teeny weeny bit of housekeeping. I'd like to ask you guys to remember to subscribe, to share and subscribe, like, please, I need the likes, to Just Jen, living my 360-degree life. Is on the YouTube channel, and I have a Facebook group. Yay, hello. And you can also follow me on Twitter, but the Twitter and the Facebook group are at Just Jen, Gust, G, not a J, Gust. And Instagram, it's at Gust live, because y'all know I'm live. So Just Jen live. I just changed it, y'all, but okay, that's another story. And please check out the show's description for all the links and today's podcast of the fabulous Donna Cowan. Oh my God, I'm so excited that she is here. She is phenomenal. Not only does she write, she has a whole series, a children's book series that she's going to tell you more about, but she also has a podcast. She's a former educator. She's a mama, a grandmama. She's a publisher. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on and on about Donna. She is all that. Welcome. Oh, I'm just too excited. Welcome, 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 Donna. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. Wow, what an introduction. I'm going to have to live up to that now, you know. I mean, the only thing you left out was, you know, the laundry and the cooking that I do for my family. But that's okay. We don't need to know about that. So I am so glad that you welcomed me here. And of course, you know, my cast of characters from the Superhero School series.
Cat is all that. Okay, you need to put that somewhere. Cat is all that. And your series, and unfortunately I don't have any of your books here because I've given them away to my nephew. So yeah, hold on. That's the latest book that she has out, but we have so much to talk about, Donna. So I'd like to hit you up with a few little questions, but before I do, please just tell us a little bit more about you. I know I said a lot, but you have more.
Oh no, I just don't know even where to start. I kind of, started my writing kind of career really early on. I grew up in a large family, and when you're the youngest in a large family, by the time they get to you, they're just done with it. There's no novelty left. They're just like, yeah, throw food and clothes at them, they'll figure it out. And so I felt a little bit alone, and all of my older siblings went to school, and this just seemed like a huge puzzle to me that something I had to crack the code on. And how did I get to go to school? I didn't understand it was an age thing or anything like that. All I was just like, well, why don't I get to go to school? And it seemed to be related to these books that they were carrying. And I'm thinking, okay, so I would swipe the books trying to figure out what it was. And then I realized it was reading. And I did not know that you weren't supposed to teach yourself how to read, but I did. I mean, that is the one nice thing about being in a large family, is I could go to, all of them and ask them what a word was. So I could get 10 or 20 words in a week in without them knowing it. And then I just go through the book and read it over and over again, try to find that word as many times as I could and say it over and over. And so, like I said, by the time I actually got in kindergarten, I could read probably at a first or second grade level. And I didn't know that was any different than what everybody did. I thought this was how you got into school.
Oh, this is your entryway. This is your test to get in.
That was the key to getting into school. So, and I don't think my family really realized that what I was doing, or that I even thought that way. Mm-hmm. But it opened an entire new world to me, because what I realized when I learned to read was that there were stories in there. There were friends, there were adventures to go on. So I didn't feel so alone anymore. So I was like
Mhm.
reading as often as I could. Of course, big family, you don't always get to go to the library. There aren't always books available. So what I started doing was I started just changing what they were doing, because I get bored of the story. And I'm like, well, how about this time, that we do something different? My mom, talked for years about the fact that, I read Cinderella so many times that I changed it to, instead of her having an evil stepmother, she had an evil boss. And then instead of, just being a princess, she was a secretary, because that was relatable to me. That was the people that I knew and lived around. So, I think that started my journey, but what really escalated me to a writer was when I was in about fifth or sixth grade. A librarian gave me a book, because, again, I read through so many of the books in my age range that she had to find something new for me to read. And she came out with this book that she had in the back. And it's not really a remarkable book. It was called The Man in the Box. And it was basically about this guy who was held captive during the Vietnam War, and his survival and everything that happened to him when he came back home.
Mhm.
And again, it's a remarkable story, but for somebody in the fifth or sixth grade, it was like, not really my favorite read. But what it did is it made me realize that anybody could write, even
Mm.
me. All I had to have was a good story. So
Mhm.
then I was just like, okay, I can do this now. So I started writing and writing and writing. Boy, my mom said I could probably buy stock in the paper company, how much paper I went through.
Yeah, we're from the old school. That's what we did. We did pencil and paper and journals and those kind of things.
I still do. For some reason, for me, when I start typing, I'm already in editing mode. So I avoid that.
Mm.
So I do a lot of my creating and first drafts and stuff still old school with journals and pens and paper. That's just the way I've operated. It gets me in that more creative mode. But
Mhm.
yeah, it was just it was exciting. And I've written years for years and years and years, and I've finished books. I started projects and not finished them. We call them UFOs, or unfinished objects. But it never occurred to me to try and publish them. I just didn't think that anybody wanted to hear or read or
Mhm.
know anything. This was just about me having adventures with my friends.
Well, tell me how you came up with the superhero school series. How'd you come up with that?
Well,
That's the
interesting.
that's the name of her series, guys. But by the way, but yeah, tell us how you came up with that idea. Anyway.
Well, actually, it was an interesting evolution, because my granddaughter came to me one afternoon and she was asking me why my cats were staying out all night and why they were so exhausted the next day and what did I think they were doing. And I had no really good question or answer for her. But at the same time, I was alternating between making up stories and telling them and reading books to them at night.
Mhm.
So just a couple of weeks later, I just came up with this story about that one of my cats was this secret superhero and that she was out saving her animal friends at night. And so we had this big tall tale about, all of her adventures, and they loved it. They had me tell this story and retell this story so many times. I was losing track of all the adjustments and changes. And then they wanted me to write it because they wanted to tell their friends. They just couldn't remember all of it. And so I
Yeah.
started writing that story. And it was good, but the problem was there was too much backstory. We couldn't get to the
Oh.
point where we needed to tell that story until we told what happened and got her to that point of being a secret superhero. So, of course, where do animals go to learn to be superheroes but superhero school?
Of course. Where else?
Exactly. So, and of course, my cat lives in the real world. And superhero school for animals doesn't exist in the real world. So then we had to come up with a place that they could go to superhero school, which is in Sweet Meadows. It is an anthropomorphic
Yes.
world, which is, animals acting like humans. Cat the cat stumbled into this world and met Simon Cheddar, a mouse. They are very unlikely friends as being a cat and a mouse. And there's some other caveats to their relationship that make it unusual. But this is where we start the adventure. Is this cat is put into a world that she knows nothing about. She feels very alone and very lost, and she's having to figure it out as she goes, which really relates to my grandchildren. And then, in their life, they've had to move several times and go to different schools and be in different neighborhoods and stuff like that. And they really did feel like they were constantly starting over and feeling like they just didn't know how everything worked. They didn't know all the rules. They didn't know all the intricate relationships and stuff. So this was something that I could talk about in a rollicking, mystery adventure way. And so this started out as being kind of a love letter from a grandmother to her grandkids about figuring out how to deal with life and how to make choices and how to make decisions and what was good versus bad and how do you get to that point where so that's kind of where we came up with this whole thing. And I'm always amazed that it was just a simple question that started the ball rolling down the hill.
It's beautiful. I mean, I just think that is wonderful, the way it started, how you were just trying to entertain your grandchildren, and it evolved so much, and everything that you had done in the past led you to this day, to that writing, and to who you are. So beautiful. Bravo.
Thank you.
Now, of all the characters you've created, who's your favorite one and why?
Wow. See, that's a very complicated story. I actually have several characters that I really like, and I'll sort of go by those quickly and tell you why. And I'll start this with a conversation that I had with one of my good friends. And when she read my first book, and she's like, I can see you in every one of these characters. And I thought that was funny because I hadn't realized I'd written myself into these characters. And she's like, no, I see you in all of these. And so depending on my mood and my day, my favorites kind of shift. But I would say my all-time favorite, the one that I resonate with the most, is Freddie Flickerson. He is a tree frog. Now, he is the smallest of all of them, which I didn't ever really feel like being the smallest person in the room. I always felt like sometimes I was the largest person in the room. But I can identify with some of the problems that he has. But at his very heart, he is very much a caregiver. He is constantly running around to make sure that everybody has what they need, that they're on track, that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's kind of me. That is kind of me. I like to run around behind the scenes and go, well, if you try this, it'll work better. Or here's an extra sandwich. You might be hungry later. And so this is, and I really didn't even think of that when I was writing this character, but it's true. It does, he does add a dimension to this story, because I think in all walks of life, you have a degree of a caregiver that is the one person that holds the group together. And Freddie Flickerson is very much that character in the Superhero School series.
I love it. And you know what? That is totally you. I mean, it is. And I always say to all of my friends and family, and mostly my friends, you choose your friends like you would your fruit. So would you want rotten fruit? No, you want some great friends. And all of my friends are different, but a lot of them have characteristics that I'm drawn to, which is why we're friends anyway, So right. I love that. Okay, so you ready for the next question, Donna?
Yeah.
Okay. Of all the books, of all your books, which book is your favorite and why?
So are we talking about all the books I've written or all the books I've read?
I would like to go with the ones that let's do both. Which book is your favorite that you've written, and which book is your favorite that you've read? And don't say my
book. Well, I'm a very voracious reader, so it's really hard to pick my favorite because it changes from week to week depending on what new little jewel I find. But I would have to say my favorite all-time book was the Borrowers series, written by I think it's Judy Norton. I may be wrong on the first name, but I loved it, and it didn't really even occur to me until somebody pointed that out to me when they asked me that similar question, that it was about these mice carrying on under the floorboards and having their own little life and their own little world. And I didn't really realize it, that I was picking up an element of that when I was writing my books. Now, of my books, it's hard to pick my favorite because they're all like my children. They are very much my children. I spent just as much time delivering those to the world as I did my own children. It's really tough, but right now the baby is with The Passion of the Pig, and this is about Patty Porter. She is a kind of sidekick to the main character, Cat the Cat, and Simon Cheddar the Mouse. But she's a tech savvy pig. She knows all things about computers and electronics and can just pretty much make anything electronic work for her. It's like at one point in the second book, she actually hacked into the satellite system to get them home. And, she's very good at doing all of these things. And so in this story, we see her be a little more vulnerable, where she's always so self-assured, even though she's a pig, even though she's been bullied and teased about her size and stuff like that. She's always pretty self-confident. But in this book, with The Passion of a Pig, we see her taken completely out of her element, where she's taken out of what is familiar and comfortable for her. And she has to adjust. She has to adjust the way she sees things, the way she thinks about things. And she has to ask for help, which is really a hard thing for Patty to do. But in the end, she learns a really good lesson. And to quote a familiar line from a famous book, there's no place like home.
Oh, and that is so true. And physically, mentally, emotionally, there is no place like home. So true. Okay, so when did you discover writing was? You already answered that. When you discovered that it was a passion for you, when the librarian gave you that book in the 5th grade, and that you learned that anyone could write. Would you say?
Yeah, this is true. I mean, there have been kind of hills and valleys throughout my life. But I think for me, what really sparked my passion and love for this particular genre is after I published my first book with the Courage of a Mouse. I should know my titles, but anyway, it was, you write, and it was me getting over this hurdle that nobody really wanted to hear my stories. They weren't important. They're just cute. They're not important. But I met this kid in Los Angeles at the Homelite Midnight Mission program that him and his family were trying to recover after being homeless. And the kid was a little bit older than what my age group is, which is the 7 to 12-year-old range. But he asked me for a copy of the book after I spoke. And he wanted me specifically to highlight some of the passages that I had read and shared with them. And I was curious. So I was asking about that while I was signing the book. And he's like, well, I've been homeless for a really long time, and I've been trying to explain it to my family or my friends at school, what it's like, and they can't quite understand. And he goes, and I don't know that I was able to explain it well. He goes, but I think if they read your book, they'll understand. Oh. And I know it just, in that moment, it's like, I honestly felt like I changed from just this, somebody that did writing for a hobby to an actual published author and a professional writer trying to get a message out into the world. I don't honestly think it was my specific words. I think it was about bringing voice to what he was struggling with, somebody giving him a platform to talk about things that he was having a problem with, which is primarily what I want with my book series, is to give kids that encouragement, but to spark that conversation, to get them to think and decide for themselves.
Exactly. You know, homelessness is a real issue here in the United States. So anything that we can do to help children, especially because they didn't ask for any of that, to help them to get through is just remarkable thing to me, you know, because they didn't ask to be there. They didn't ask for that set of parents. They didn't ask for any of that. So anything to provide them some comfort or some joy, or even allowing them to feel like, you know, to feel that someone understands and cares, and for your books to do that is just wonderful, because I mean, because sometimes a book will touch you where nothing else will, you know, your parents, your friends, you know, they can't relate, but you know, sometimes a book can speak to you and help you through the tough times. So I'd like to thank you for that. So, okay,
well, it's mostly just about starting these conversations, and a lot of the themes and topics that I do bring up for the characters to struggle and deal with are things that I've had to either discuss or talk with my grandchildren about.
Right.
They were running into multiple issues with kids in their classroom, or kids that they knew that were going through this situation where they were either homeless or on the edge of homelessness. So I felt like it was an important topic to not really dive too deep into, but at least to bring it forward as a topic of conversation.
Right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just as a retired teacher, you know, that I taught for years, it's just important. Okay, and my next question is, you come from a huge family. If you could change anything about your upbringing, what would you change and why?
That's hard to answer, because there are many things that I wish were different, but if I went back and changed them, then I don't think I'd be the same person. So part of me really would wish that things had gone differently when I was growing up, and maybe gotten a little more attention, maybe, been a little more focused and not feeling like I was constantly catching up. But doing that provided me with the impetus to go out and do things new, such as teaching myself to read, or teaching myself to just do anything. It's like it taught me that, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to figure out how to do it on my own. And that's just who I am at a core level. So I don't know that I'd want to change anything. I mean, I can wish that things were different, but I don't want to change me too much at this point. So I'll just have to hope next time it's better.
If reincarnation, that's a whole nother subject.
Yeah. Well, my grandkids asked me about that one time, just brought up the subject about what did I think about it. And then, of course, that led to the conversation about, do I want to come back as a cat? Because I have 5 cats. And I'm like, no, I want to go.
You're the cat lady.
I know. I'm like, but I want to come back as my cat, because my cats are very spoiled and very, very well treated. So yeah, I want to find another cat lady like me to come in.
Not the crazy cat lady, just the cat lady. Okay, there's a difference.
Yes.
Okay, what characteristics does one need to be a superhero?
Well, I think each person has their own definition of what makes a superhero important. In the book, Simon Cheddar says that choices make heroes, not powers. And I think he's right. And I think we all have to decide, when you're in that moment, what choice makes you powerful, what makes you part of your community, what makes you part of your friendship group, what makes you part of what is going on in the world around you. Because you can either fight against it, go along with it, or change it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the superhero is the one that wants to change it.
Okay. Yes. Love that. Okay. How did you name, how did you come up with the name for your characters?
Well, interestingly enough, you know, Cat was just a kind of a fill-in when I was writing the story because I couldn't quite come up with a name for her, so we just kept calling her Cat. But then that got confusing with the editing because they kept trying to change it to a lowercase cat, so we added the second T so that wouldn't happen. And the other character, the main character, Simon Cheddar, it's like I did not have a name for him. It was originally he was just supposed to be a side character. He wasn't supposed to have a starring role. He was slated to, be brought forward in a later book to give him his own moment in the sun, such as the other characters in the superhero squad. But he wasn't slated to be, part of the main character. But this character, for some reason, and I know this is all going in my head, so don't think I'm crazy here, but this character would wake me up in the middle of the night trying to talk to me about, I need a bigger part. I'm like, I don't, it's like, you'll get a bigger part later. And he's like, no, I need a bigger part now. And by the way, my name is Simon Cheddar. And I'm like, what's going on here? I'm like changing my food at night, what I drink, what I do at night, going, I'm having some strange hallucinations. And I kept just writing down these notes in the middle of the night. I'd find them the next morning and I'm like, this is just very strange. And it was night after night after night, to the point where my husband was just like, I think I'm going to have to sleep in the other room. This is you waking up at 2:30 in the morning and scribbling for 45 minutes is getting old. And I'm like, okay. But then that very night, 2:30, woke up in the middle of the night because Simon had come to me in my dream and he's just like, who do you think could teach courage better than a mouse? And now we have with Courage of a Mouse, and Simon Cheddar is a main character, and I would not change that. I think he was right, and again, I know that's part of my subconscious working out the plot line of the story, but to me, my characters feel very real and alive. And Simon spoke to me in a way, it's like he is a mouse. They do have to courageously go about their business every day with everybody in the world trying to get rid of them. And so he's right. Who could teach you better courage than a mouse?
Love it. Look at you, girl. Characters just taking over your nighttime sleep and everything. Say, look, okay, you going to make a book about me. I love it.
Well, okay. Right now I'm dealing with my character for my next book, which is it's a new spin-off series from one of the characters in the superhero school series called in the series is named after him. It's Ricky Rent, the Street Rat series. And he's really pushing me. I mean, his book is mostly done. It's just we're trying to get through the final stages and had some complications, not with the book itself, but with other things that have kind of gotten in the way. And yeah, he's starting to push me really hard to get his book and story out there. So.
Okay, girl, you better do it.
I know. The next one's going to come haunting me pretty soon.
Yeah, I know. It's like you're not going to be able to sleep at all. All the characters are going to come and get you in the middle of the night.
I'm just waiting for when I go to bed some night and they're going to be on my bed with a picnic going, okay, we need to talk.
We bought you some food. It's imaginary, but you can just pretend.
Exactly.
Okay. So what have you learned throughout your journey as a writer? I know you've learned a lot. So we'll just talk about two things that you've learned.
Oh, well.
The most important.
Okay. Well, yes. I mean, I could talk about this subject on and on and on, but I'm going to say what I tell most people is you don't know what you don't know. And you won't know until you get to that point. You won't know who you need to talk to, what you need to learn, what you need to discover, or what choices you need to make. And it's really difficult. Even authors such as you and I who published multiple books, we can't give them all the answers because there are so many roads and so many avenues. They all do lead to Rome or the publishing business, but there's so many ways to get there, and there's so many different little choices along the way that may not necessarily be right for us, but they may work for that particular author. And the second thing is, know who your audience is, because everything that you do is going to come back to that. You cannot speak to a 6-year-old the same way that you would speak to a 12-year-old, or use the same kind of language, or to a teenager, or to an adult. It's going to be different. Your word choice is going to be different. The phrasing, the length, the length of the sentences, the overall story you tell is going to be different. Right. So you have to know who your audience is. You have to know who it is you're speaking to. And for those of you who are going to nay me and say, well, my book's for everyone, well, that may be true in the big rainbow world, but in the real world, you need a target audience. You may get bleed over into everybody else, but you're going to have to start somewhere. You can't just, fire, a book up into the atmosphere and hope it rains copies down for everybody, in the same way you can't shoot your book out into the world and hope everybody reads it.
Right. I mean, of course, I think we would all like for our books to be for everyone, but our shoes for everybody? Our glasses one size fit all? Does everybody live in the same house? We're not robots, okay? We're not a monolith. So that's just no.
I agree.
You're going to have a target. So yeah. So I know, like, my books are targeted for, preschool, if mommy and daddy read to them, all the way to like 8 or 9-year-olds. But I've written my book such that the parents would feel, included and not feel alone. So I get you. So, I mean, you can, it just does better when you're targeting your book. So I agree. Okay, next. Okay, so how can my listeners find you? How?
Well, I make it pretty simple for them. You can go to my website, which is donnasagercowan.com. That's DonnaSagerCowan.com. You can link to all of my social media there. You can link to all the purchase retailers for my books. You can contact me if you would like me to come and speak to your group. It also links you to my editing page, where I do editing and ghostwriting and publishing advisories types of thing, and coaching. And it also will link you to my podcast, The Writer's Parachute, where we talk about all the little invisible walls that everybody runs into that we have no idea that are there. So, I try to make it as simple as possible, because I know nobody's got time for complicated.
Yes. Yes, you're so right. And I will have all of her information in the links below. Okay, so because we want you to go and visit Donna, and if you're trying to get a book written, Donna is the person. If you need an editor, Donna is the person. If you just have a question about writing or even life, what am I going to say? Donna is the person.
Call 1-800-writers, I guess. I don't know.
Yes. Oh, we have to get work on that, Donna. I'll get you a 1-800 number. Yeah. Ideas are popping, honey. Yes.
Right. And I don't want to forget to mention, I did put out a coloring book earlier in 2021. It is Simon and Patty's Super Secret Guidebook. It is kind of an introduction coloring book to the Superhero School series. The characters within, there's a lot of puzzles and coloring pages. And at the end, when they complete the coloring book, there's actually a Superhero School certificate for them, signed by Mayor Phillip of Sweet Meadows.
Amazing. You are amazing. Okay. So where can people purchase your books? Now we learned how to get in touch with you. So can they purchase on your website and all of those things as well?
If they would like a signed copy, yes, they can purchase on my website right now. We are working on getting the shop on that, but for right now, it's just the signed copies. Otherwise, my books are available pretty much at all retailers worldwide, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple, all of those. So if you do not find your favorite retailer and you cannot find it at your local bookstore, please reach out to me and let me know then, and we'll make sure we get it to you.
Okay. Okay. And you tell me a little bit more about your podcast and where we can find you.
Oh, well, the podcast, we just started that and I'm having so much fun with it. It's the writer's parachute, guiding writer and author dreams to a perfect landing. And we're talking about some of the problems that people run into when they're writing and publishing their books. It's not all sunshine and roses. There are things that you have to learn. There are stumbling blocks. There's this thing about getting advice at the right time and the right moment. Sometimes that doesn't always happen, and so you have to back up a few steps. So we try to offer tips and tools and some shortcuts for those in the writing industry to try and help them get there. We've so far talked to an author of a new children's picture book. We've talked to an illustrator giving us tips on how to find an illustrator, and this week we're going to be talking to a PR firm about getting promotion, marketing, and press releases out into the world, and give you a few tips and stuff about that. We do an interview each week with somebody that's going to offer us some great information about how to get your books out in the world. We'll talk about different problems that they run into and how they overcame those. And then we offer, a writing tip every week. It's either writing, promoting, or marketing your book that I offer a tip every week. And so we're going to be adding in the month of February, where we're going to do an open call questions. So if you go to the Facebook group at Writer Parachute, that's Writer Parachute with no S, then you can leave a question in the post comments, and then we collect all of those and we try to answer as many of those as we can once a month. So be sure to go there and add your question if you've got, if you have a writing problem or if you just want to stump me.
I love it. Okay, well, that is all I have. You've answered all of my questions, sweet pea.
Oh, well, yay. So does that mean I pass the test? Do I get an A+, teacher Jen?
Girl, you get an A++. Hey.
Take a sticker home.
Yes. Well, I want to again thank you for joining me at Just Jen, living my 360-degree life. And Donna, you've been a wonderful friend, a wonderful helper. You've been an awesome editor, sounding board, and I want to just thank you for being my friend, like the Golden Girls would say. Thank you for being a friend. Okay, y'all don't want me to sing. Okay, so yeah. So anyway, please, guys, I want to remind you all to be sure to hit the like button and share, and subscribe. I'm going to say goodbye to Donna. Bye, Donna.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so y'all know I'm new at this. So Donna, should I leave you with me, or do you want to stay with me to the very end? Are you ready to leave right now?
I'm not going to complicate your life.
Thank you. So Donna is my actual first guest. So I did a monologue before, but she's the very first guest. So I'm still trying to figure it out. So it's all good. I'm not totally brand new, but newish. Okay. So guys, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and also follow and get in touch with my Donna over here, the same places. And here's the next time. I am just a little plug for myself, shameless plug. My podcasts are going to be available on Tuesdays and Thursdays also. But on Thursday, I want to have some interviews, but I'm really trying to just have Thursday for Ask Jen, or just it's going to be a time when we're just going to shoot the breeze and talk. I want to like do it with Facebook so we can just talk and you can ask questions, and it's just going to be live. Okay. Y'all like that? I know you do. Okay, so Live with Jen. So if you have some questions, please, reach out. Email me. The Adventures of Lily 2003 at gmail.com. I'll have it don't worry, I'll have it in the notes below. Okay, well, anyway, thank you guys. Thank you again, Donna. Y'all have a blessed day and peace out.